Hey, how's it going? This is Eric with Solve Cycle Solutions, and I want to show you how to use the HTTP basic request to extract information from API calls that you can implement in your own no-code solutions. So if you're interested in getting that set up or learning how to start using more advanced features in tools like make.com, then you come to the right place. Let's get started. I want to cut right to the chase and start talking about the pain points that I had that inspired me to develop this no-code solution. And I want to walk through that with you and then discuss a bit about some of the uses of how to implement HTTP basic requests and some of the variations that you may face when starting to work with this specific module inside of make.com. Looking inside of SmartSuite, you can see the recipe index table that I have built. And this is very similar to my actual real world practical application that I've built. I have a couple more field types for categorizations, but I wanted to show you the basics of this because what I have is the title, a trigger we'll talk about in a minute, recipe link, the ingredients, and directions. Now, if I'm having something simple like this dish, Spanish rice, which is something that is a staple in my household, that I don't even need to look at the recipe. I know how to make it. It's also very simple. You can see here, it's 5 ingredients, rice, ground turkey, ragu, spices, and kale. I don't need to have directions. I don't need to have a URL because the link doesn't actually exist. But if I find an interesting new recipe that I want to try, take this smoky chicken and cinnamon roasted sweet potato recipe. There's several different ingredients that will appear that I don't want to have to switch back and forth between copying this information and copying the instructions and having all this information just have to be manually entered. That was something that I struggled with initially, and that kept me from using my own automation system because it took too much time to enter this information in. So the goal of this particular automation is that I am trying to reduce the amount of work that I have to put in to creating a recipe record so that it guarantees that I'm more likely to submit it and I'm more likely to want to try this in the future instead of having to go back and find a recipe on a website and either miss ingredients when I'm grocery shopping or just trying to not be lazy. So I know that's a bit of a mouthful at the beginning. So if you are confused or want to go back to the very beginning, I have a playlist of all of the different instances that I have built for my grocery and meal plan automation system. So if you want to get started there, I recommend looking at the start of that playlist. Or if you are just trying to get started with the basic HTTP requests, I'll be sure to put timestamps in the description of this video so that you can take a look at that and see exactly what you're trying to get. I've already shown you the field types that we need, and the only other thing that I haven't shown you here is that I have an automation for a mail hook trigger. So that's what this status is for inside of SmartSuite, is that as soon as I hit this send to make and have a URL in the recipe link, it is going to fire off a mail hook connection to make.com, which I've already built this in another video. So be sure to take a look at that as well if you're having difficulty understanding the mail hook. But I have this set up so that basically the information will fire over to the webhook, find the exact record that we're looking for, and be able to extract the URL from there. And then we're going to be able to run it through the HTTP request system. So in this case, before I start building, I do want to make sure that we have this information up so that we can start mapping it. So I'm going to take this budget bites recipe here and create a new record here. I'm just going to put example record here because we're actually going to update the title as well at the end of the automation. So I'm going to hop back into Make, and down here you will see this Run Once. I'm going to click this so that we can begin generating information. So I'm going to hit Send to Make. We'll give this a minute. And the system is working as intended. And you can see here that we have the ID and we have the specific recipe link that we need, which is perfect. Now, what we're going to need is like I've been saying, the HTTP request. So this particular module looks like a giant internet globe, and you'll see that there are several different variations of the make a request function. My main point here, bringing up these different examples, is that you need to be aware of what requests you're trying to make and what information you may need to get access to that. In this case, I'm going to be using a specific tool called Spoonacular, which has a built-in API that allows me to extract information from websites and consolidate it based on the specific information that we're looking for. So you can look at this yourself and play around with it. I'll put a link in the description of the video. But if you have an account, which they do have a free account that you can use, it's very generous, so it is worth looking into if you're trying to build this specific tool. But what I need to do is just copy the API that is created in my account. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to hit the make an API key authentication request here with the HTTP module. And what it's going to ask for is the credentials, where it's going to say, choose a key. So I should be able to just hit this Spoonacular API because I've already put this into my system, and I should be all set here. The next thing that we need to put in is the URL, which in this case is going to be the command that we're looking for inside of the API. So the Spoonacular API has a very resource-rich documentation showing the different commands that you can put in. I'm not going to go into all of them here, but the main thing that I'm looking for is this extract recipes from website. So looking at this extract recipe from website API command, what we need to be able to do is just scroll down to the example, and you can see that this is for the chocolate crinkle cookies. I'm actually just going to highlight here the HTTPS all the way down to URL equals. I'm going to hop back into the HTTP request, put that in, but then I'm going to take from the SmartSuite record that we found the URL. So let me just do a quick search, recipe link, that'll work. It may move this to the front, so you need to make sure that you have the cursor set at the exact point, but this should be all set. I am going to hit parse response as yes. We can leave everything else blank, and from there we can hit OK. And then the next thing that we need to do is run this particular test. So if I click the run this module only, we're going to have the recipe link. So I'm going to open up the actual recipe that we have here. I'm going to paste that into this test, and it's going to run. And if we open up the results, it's actually going to look like initially that there's not a lot of information here. But if I open up this collection for data, you're going to see that Spoonacular pulls out so much information that it's actually more than you probably will need. So you can see here that we have extended ingredients, and the one thing about this particular Budget Bytes website is that the original title is listing the the measurements, which we want, as well as the item, but then it also shows the cost. Most other websites, it's probably just going to be the 1 tablespoon brown sugar. So this is just a one-off weird instance that, or if you want to use that, that's also fantastic for you. But what we're going to look for to extract is this original title here from the HTTP request. So to do that, we have to go down here to the tools section, and we're going to select the set variable. This allows us to map specific data points from large, complicated arrays, and it makes it a lot easier for us in general just to pull this back later without having to worry about information missing. So in this case, I'm just going to put the variable name as ingredients. And then we're going to have to set some additional restrictions is probably the wrong term, but that's kind of how or filters may be better. On this menu here at the top, you'll see that there's an icon that looks like a bar sheet. If I click that, you will see that there is this option for map. And I'm going to click this, and what we're going to find is that this is trying to find out in a complex array, like it says here, we are trying to identify the specific value that we're looking for inside that array. So I'm going to hit the star icon here to go back to our initial data overset view. And I'm going to click this, make sure that the cursor is set for this map, or right after the map and between the semicolon. I'm going to hit the extended ingredients. Now, the other thing that we need to be careful of is we're going to enter in the specific filter that we want, and we're going to type in original, but you need to make sure that it is spelled exactly and also is case sensitive. So let's just double check before we run this. Yep, original, all lowercase. I've run this in the past where it was original with a capital O and it failed to run. So we're going to do that. And now we're going to have the iterator, which is going to break apart this array of mapped values here. So we're going to put the ingredients in here and break that apart so that each individual item is going to be recognized. And then we're going to then consolidate all that inside an array again, the aggregator. So we're going to compile all this into one large list. And before I go in here and start mapping information, I find that it's easier to put the final step in. So in this case, I'm going to hit the update record, and I'm going to hit, let me move this over a little bit to make sure that that's visible to y'all. I'm going to pull up the solution that we're looking for. In this case, I'm using the test zone. I'm going to do recipe index. And then for now, I'm not going to be able to map the specific record that I'm looking for. So I'm just going to select the example as a placeholder. We're going to leave everything else blank. The only thing that we're going to do is we're going to toggle on the map for the ingredients checklist. And this is where we're going to hit the only option that will pull up right now, which is the array aggregator. So we're going to hit that and hit OK. Now, the reason that I'm doing it in this particular way is that we need to map the specific target structure to be a SmartSuite checklist. I wouldn't be able to do that from just opening up the array aggregator and trying to map things initially. So all we're doing here is selecting this, and then that's going to pull up the item description, due date, and assignee that normally would be with the SmartSuite checklist function. But here what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the iterator value here, and I'm going to set the source as iterator as well. And we're just going to leave everything else blank because we don't need a due date for our ingredients. We don't need to assign the ingredients to someone specifically. We're just going to hit OK there. And then the other nice feature that I'm able to utilize with Spoonacular is that because there's so much of this extra data here, I can come in and set the title from the recipe. We don't have to put any descriptions in. We can leave the recipe link blank, but we can also have the directions be put in as a long text. So that's able to fit in perfectly. The only other thing that I want to do is just mark the trigger complete so that we know that the system ran through properly and that everything worked as intended. There may be certain websites that you want to use that can't work with this particular Spoonacular format if you're trying to build this yourself. And that's where there may need to be a failsafe for setting up a status that says manual entry required. And that's something that I will try and go over in another video of how to handle error handling inside of Make. But for now, our system is pretty much all set up here. I'm going to save this information and then we're going to run this final test. So I'm going to hit run once and then I'm going to hop back over to SmartSuite and I'm going to hit the send to make trigger and then we can just watch this go. It's going to take a minute to process through everything here. And look at that. Let's double check that our ingredients are correct here. We're seeing the pinch of cayenne pepper. We're seeing a teaspoon of brown sugar. So it looks like that's all set up. And you can see hopping back into SmartSuite that the title was updated, the status is marked complete, and then we have 16 different ingredient items and all the instructions listed here that we need to cook this recipe. So there you go. That in a nutshell is how you can start using API and HTTP requests to extract information and implement this in your own no-code solution. I hope having a practical example of using this helped instead of maybe something more of a hypothetical or just as a general showcase. If you did find this useful, please feel free to let me know in the comments. And also, just as a general FYI, if you found this system fascinating and want it implemented in your own workspace, or if you're needing help with other automation or other no-code solutions, then please consider taking advantage of my free 30-minute consultations that I'm offering. You can access that by clicking the link in the description of this video, and you can sign up as early as the next day. In the meantime, that's all I have to say regarding this HTTP request call. And like I said, I hope you got a ton of value out of this. Please let me know if there's anything that you are working on or things that you would like to see in future videos. And I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.